really amazed by your achievements, and in a very short space of time too. I mean, you did your first degree, your bachelor's, your master's, and now you're on to your PhD, your doctorate. And you're a mother too on top of all of that. Tell me, how have you been managing to do this? What exactly have you been doing? What's the formula you've been using?
Actually, Tendai, to be honest with you, it was like rediscovering myself a bit late. But still, I don't regret. When I rediscovered myself, I could not just stop. I could just go on and on and on.
If I remember correctly, you finished your education certificate in 1981. And between then and 1996, you said,
Yes.
that had been 15 years when you had been teaching and out of school. And then you just decided that you were going to go back to school, did your English O-level, did your A-level to prepare yourself to get into university.
Yes.
How did you feel sitting on that desk with kids that you had possibly taught yourself?
Well, Tendai, it was big determination. Maybe at times we wait for things to happen. And then when some things that you never expected in your life happen, then it's like you really must pull yourself up. You awaken from this dream. So actually,
when something happened at that time.
Something had happened. When then, instead of maybe I would say this was God's grace, in the sense that for me, otherwise to then think that this was the end of maybe my life, I decided I chose the positive route of then advancing myself. I can say a little bit back so that maybe you understand what I'm talking about. I was married. Actually, I am married, but then I'm looking at that time when marriage life was very easy. Very, very easy for me. My husband was employed by Standard Chartered Bank. He had a very big post, a branch manager and so on. But 1994, in February, he lost his job. That's when it dawned on me that either I was going to sink or I was going to
rise from this situation in a positive way.
It was a very difficult situation. That's when I then realized that I could actually look after the family, because when I looked at myself that time, I thought of teachers, because I'm a teacher, professional teacher, who were running families.
And how many children did you have at that time?
I had 3. All of them were in school.
And then
all
suddenly,
of them, yes,
you've just lost this other income that
Yes.
has also been contributing majorly to the family.
Yes.
Now, Eurita, you mentioned that you mainly grew up in Mondoro area, and sometimes during the August holidays, you would go to town, you'd come to Harare to visit your dad. What was going on in your mind? What was life like in that village out there in Mondoro at that time in the 60s?
Since that life is the only life that I had been exposed to, it was like the whole life to me. Because I had no other alternative to compare it with.
To compare it with.
It is only now when I look back, then I try to redefine it. I try to make sense of it. I try to understand what was going on. Otherwise, that was the life. Yeah. But when then I look back and try to understand it, it was tough life, Tendai. And so, when I always talk about raw life, like now even when I'm doing my PhD, when I talk about raw life, I try to make these girls understand, to actually put myself
in their shoes.
In their shoes.
Because
it's very
it's something
easy for
that
me.
you actually experienced. It's
Yes.
not a story that you're hearing. It's something that you know very well. And so reflecting back, what do you see looking at yourself, say, at 5 years, at 10 years as a teenager? What do you see? And what do you think and what do you feel about that time?
Yeah. Rural life, I would just put it in as a phrase to say it's difficult life. Yeah, rural life is never easy.
Day to day.
Yeah, day to day, your experiences, your exposure. But at the same time, maybe it is also full of richness because it teaches you, it prepares you to face hardships. Maybe that's why I'm now what I am today, because of that background. Maybe it contributed to preparing me to face challenges, to try and work out maybe ways I can solve problems here and there. I've been maybe, can we say toughened? Toughened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. To talk about my experiences when I was still a primary school going girl. My primary school is Chishoshe Primary School. And we're living in this village called Muswe. And from my Form 1, from my sub A to grade 7, it was from that village to that school. And people say this school is 7 kilometers away from Muswe village, Chishoshe Primary School.
So you would walk 7 kilometers.
It was not walking, Tendai. It was running.
Why were you always late?
Not late, but that is the means of, going to school that I grew up knowing that you run
7 kilometers every day. You didn't have cows, you didn't have goats. So what was your secondary school experience like at this time?
Right. You would not believe me if I tell you that in the first 2 weeks of my secondary education, before my father had bought me school shoes, I went barefooted in town. There is a particular girl I remember very well, and her name was Irene Madamombi. She used to be, it was a long time ago, I saw she was one of the presenters at the ZTV sometime, this Irene Madamombi. She donated her second uniform, which was in better shape to me.
Wow.
And I could not say it to my father.
Today, thinking about it, what would you say to a child who's walking on this very road, coming to school every day?
Because I'm where I am, but having started from such humble beginnings where I was at this raw school, what I can only say is remain focused, be determined, and never give up. I was actually proud of doing very well in class because I was brilliant. Yes, I was struggling in my English that I will never forget.
But
other things, I would make my teachers proud of me.
It's amazing how we can walk today and talk about these stories and talk about all this history without necessarily thinking about the torn shoes that you spoke about.
Let me just show you how to get here. No shoes, Tendai. Let me put my shoes aside. And it would be going to school barefooted, Tendai.
Wow.
Except for the winter season, where my father maybe would make sure that I did this to me.
Finally, what's your happiest memory from within this place?
Tendai, I feel good. It's like I'm back home.
Wow.
With home, we always say, home, sweet home.
Yeah.
And as I'm saying this, Tendai, I feel good that I'm back home.
Oh.
I wait for one day that I'll come back here, maybe with a doctorate.
And speak to the kids
Yeah.
and show them what's possible.
Funda chimwe chidzidzo chokuti mwana musikana hatite hatirege kuite sezvakudaro kuti mwana mukomana ndiye anochengeta vabereki kana kuti no, otherwise the best mwana anochengeta vabereki chaiyo musikana nekuti ndaiona ndisina problem kwavari asi ndaingoona ruri
rubatsiro saka makatarisa makuriro ake nezvese nezvamakutaura izvi kuti mwana musikana muchiona kuti zvoni zvaitwa kudhara zvese zvakasiyana rairiziva mungapi kune mamwewo madzibaba
kunze uku panyaya yevana vakomana nevana vasikana ndeyekuti chii?
ndeyekungoti mwana ari mukomana ari musikana vabaite zvimwe chete paunenge uchikwanisa kana kuvapa education vape zvakangoenzana kuita kuti uyo agobuda nechipo chake. Usadzivirire mumwe munhu kuti ukamudzivirira ukati uyu ndinomubvara apa ndoroti agumira apa wamudziisa zvipo zvake zvaanga achawana uko mberi mupe ave asununguka.
Tendai, I'm convinced that an individual must be given an opportunity to develop oneself to get what we call in sociology achieved status. Achieved status is your own. No one can take it away from you. Yes,
That's
it's
beautiful.
your own until you die.
That's beautiful.
So my heart bleeds when individuals who are part of Zimbabwean community are deprived of this education that would make them then get this achieved status. So when I even talk to the students here, I always encourage them that this is only the beginning of what they can be in their own lives.
Wow.
And it is upon an individual to develop oneself to the maximum until you think you have done what up to your capacity, fullest capacity.
So we can say that sometimes in the most difficult situations, that's where our blessings come in, that's where realization comes in, because when your husband lost his job, that's when you then realize that you could do better and you could go out there, and you use the statement rediscovered yourself. So it's not always doom and gloom when things go haywire, but you can pick up and find even more meaning from there.
You are very right.